Cunliffe.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Talo Falava and Soifua. Mr Speaker, to the Prime Minister, does he stand by all his statements?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, yes, is particularly the one that says it would be superfluous using the Samoan language if you wouldn't let any migrants in from Samoa.
Mr Speaker.
Order. Supplementary question, Honourable David
Mr
Cunliffe.
Speaker, in light of that answer, is he aware that the Salvation Army reports that more than twice New Zealanders of Pacific origin are unemployed now than when he took office?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, I haven't seen the particular report, but what I can say is the government's working hard to make sure everyone has a job.
Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Speaker, is he therefore satisfied that under his government only 18.5% of Pacific people own their own home, compared to 49.8% for the general population and 56.8% for those of European origin?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, one of the things the government's been working very hard on is ensuring that people from the Pacific can participate in our education system as we would hope for everyone. That means much greater focus on early childhood education. It means Pacific students are actually doing a lot better. And the very reason why all of that's important, of course, is what you know, is as people get better and higher levels of education, they can afford to buy their own homes. But I am surprised that the member is in Parliament today pretending like he cares about the people of the Pacific, because he doesn't.
Order. This is a point of order. It will be heard in silence.
Mr Speaker, my point of order was that the Prime Minister, he did sit down, just as I raised it, was moving into material that was outside of a question that was about housing, and he was attributing policies to the opposition, which is simply not correct.
Order. On this occasion, the Prime Minister addressed the question to my satisfaction. Supplementary question, Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Speaker, does the Prime Minister, if he doesn't wish to comment further about housing, does he stand by his statement that the timber processing industry is not shrinking? And if so, what does he say to the 180 people who recently lost their jobs at Southern Cross Forest Products in South Otago?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, I don't know the exact details of why that particular mill is closing, but what I do know is that forestry actually overall has been booming. And Mr Speaker, what I also know is for forestry processing to be successful, two things are actually required. Actually, a reform of the RMA is one of those things that would substantially help. And the second thing is a stable electricity supply, neither of which would occur under a Labor-led government.
Mr Speaker, supplementary.
Order. Supplementary question, Honourable David Cunliffe.
Why did the Prime Minister not take up the Labor opposition's offer to split the RMA amendment bill and speed up, by bipartisan consensus, the processing dimensions while preserving the core principles of the Act for future generations?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Well, Mr Speaker, because it wouldn't be possible to achieve the outcomes of cheaper and more affordable housing by doing that. And secondly, actually, we didn't need his help to do that. We already had that from the Maori Party and United. If we want to have a proper and serious bill, the member would have joined in the debate. But he didn't, and he should be careful. He should be careful reading too much into the John Armstrong column on the weekend.
Mr Speaker, eat your heart out, Mr Prime Minister.
Order. Can I just invite the member to start with a supplementary question? Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Speaker, does the Prime Minister know that Red Stag Timber in Rotorua has committed to almost double its current production if Labor is able to implement its forestry upgrade package of tax deferrals, a pro-wood policy and secure wood supply, thus providing higher paying and better jobs?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Well, Mr Speaker, I've been to Red Stag and I'm quite aware of their operations, and actually their operations have been expanding anyway, irrelevant of what goes on. Secondly, Mr Speaker, the government is supportive of the use of wood, but it's not actually going to tell every building in the country that it has to be built out of wood. We don't think that makes sense.
Mr Speaker, the Prime Minister...
Order. Supplementary question, Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Speaker, is he concerned that New Zealanders in other industries are also suffering, like the 48 staff that were laid off recently at Griffin's, or the 125 who are going to lose their jobs at Cerebus Greggs, When will he show vision and a plan for growing better jobs and higher wages in the New Zealand economy?
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, it's a little hard to take that comment seriously when the economy generated 84,000 new jobs in the last 12 months. It's on track to create 170-odd thousand jobs, as we said it would. Mr Speaker, anybody who knows anything about the labour markets actually knows that what happens is that there are always companies that close or that shed employees, and at exactly the same time in a fast-growing economy there are plenty of jobs that are created. And in fact, in New Zealand, as the Treasury documents show, we're on track for a much lower level of unemployment.
Order. Supplementary question, Louise Upston.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Supplementary to the Prime Minister. Has he seen any statements regarding immigration?
Mr Speaker, I have.
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, I have. I've seen a statement that says migrants from all over the world play a vital role in the economic transformation and wonderful diversity of this country. That role is set to increase in the future as our needs for skills and talented people continues. I've also seen when we continue, we can't sustain the economy we want without the skills, investment and international connections that migrants can bring. And finally, I saw a statement that said fostering immigration is a no-brainer. Those statements, of course, were from the Immigration Minister, Mr David Cunliffe.
Mr Speaker.
Order.
Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Speaker, in light of that excellent response with which I thoroughly agree, does he support the right of every young New Zealander to aspire to own their own home, and of every parent to want that for their children? And does he believe that a well-managed immigration policy should contribute to that goal?
Well, Mr Speaker,
Honourable Prime
yes,
Minister.
the government's working hard to ensure as many New Zealanders as practically can own a home. And the way to fix that is actually build more homes. But, Mr Speaker, if the issue is solely one of migration, well, then why were 43,000 people led in under Labor? Why did Labor do nothing to reform the supply side of the housing issue? Mr Speaker, the reality is, when you're looking down the barrel of 30% and falling, what you do is you have a whack at your core constituency. And I remember when that member became the leader of the Labor Party, what happened? Someone came up with a Pacific way and put it round.
Order. This answer is now going on for long enough. Order. Question number 4, Mike Sabin.
Thank you, sir. My question to the Minister of Police: what steps is the government taking to reduce the harm